Right, dramatic countdown over. Isabella Schmidt, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to chat.
It's a pleasure. So I've been kind of following your work for a while on Instagram. Obviously, everyone who kind of is aware of you already kind of knows of your connection with the Jexy Talent Agency, but I kind of want to go into a bit of the origin work. I feel like one of the main things that interests me in kind of seeing these finished, I guess, products and online is like what kind of goes into the process of building these things. So one recent, like, I guess, quote I saw online was obsession creates originality. So going into the origins of Jexy Talent Agency, I guess, what kind of things did you want to start? And I guess, how did your previous experience kind of help you with that transition?
Yeah, so I actually have a very different background than influencer marketing. So long story short, I actually went to a school for pre-veterinary medicine.
Oh,
And
it's very
yeah,
different.
completely different. And my goal was to take a gap year, wasn't sure about vet school or anything like that. So I ended up getting into sales. I used to ride horses competitively, so I was selling
Okay.
saddles. And then COVID hit and I was laid off for a few weeks and I was just like scrambling to find anything. At that point, I was like, I don't care what it is, I just need
Yep.
something. So I ended up getting into digital marketing, working with my now business partner on her company. And for through that, I was starting to talk to a lot of other creators and kind of started to do my own content creation. So I started doing a lot of travel content. I'm partnering with hotels and things like that. And then her and I, her name is Jenny, we got a little bit closer. We started talking more. And we were like, because she's a content creator too. She was a mommy blogger. So we were like, we love creating content. We love this space. But wouldn't it be cool to manage the influencers instead of actually
Mhm.
doing the influencing ourselves?
So do you actually
So
remember that conversation? Like, when were you like, whoa, that would actually be an awesome idea? Like, what was that
Yeah,
conversation like?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't one particular conversation. It was a variation of multiple conversations over a string of time period. And especially as the COVID restrictions started lifting and we
Mhm.
started seeing a lot more creators going out and about and wanting to connect with each other and things like that. That conversation really just started hitting hay. So we were like, you know what? Nothing like today, so let's just do it. And we jumped head first, and that's what we did. And then we created Jexy. So
I love that. Yeah, because I even feel like I remember first a few years ago, because I've been doing this podcast for about a year and a half now. But I remember, because I'm a weird person, I had this like 3 month obsession with the Vietnam War. Don't ask me. I'm a history major, so it's not that weird. It's not
hey, it's
that
all
distant
good.
of a connection. And I was like, hey, like maybe I'll make like a Vietnam War podcast. And then I got accepted into a different program, so I kind of put that on hold. But I feel like everyone during COVID who like who you see as kind of the main content creators now are like, oh, I started during COVID just for something to
Yeah,
do at home, and then it kind of just exploded into all these other opportunities afterward. Um,
exactly.
so as you start to like how do you go from, okay, we should go from influencer marketing to actually creating Jexy agency, and like who are the first people you're working with? What are the things that you're doing differently, and how did that kind of go about?
Yeah, I mean, we actually just hit our 3 years in October, and let me tell
Congrats.
you,
That's
thank
sweet.
you, thank you. But let me tell you, it has been a whirlwind of everything. I mean, just with any business, there's ups and downs on everything. So, I mean, to answer your question of how we started off, you have to get certain licenses and applications through to become a talent agency, and especially in particular states, Florida being one of those states in particular, you have to get like a specialized license compared to
Hmm.
a lot of the other states. So that was the big first process, is getting through all of that, getting our legal team involved to do that, make sure we were doing it right. And then, of course, setting up the accounting side and making sure, we were putting funds into what was important to put funds into, and then that. And then once we got that all squared away, it was okay. Now we need to start signing creators. How do we do that? What kind of people do we want in here? And we started off a lot differently than where we're at now. But I think, especially over these past, I would say 2 years, we've really found our footing with the type of influencers we want to sign and who we want to like associate ourselves with, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah, and I've noticed like a common pattern, I guess, it's not all creators are, seen in terms of just their exact follower count, but they usually range between, I would say, like 50 and 200,000. There's kind of something that you see as something that can be, I guess, propelled with them. I guess, what do you look for when you're like scouting creators for that?
Definitely. Yeah, we definitely have a few qualifications that are super important. The first one being following count is very important, yes, but
Hmm.
brands are looking for all different kinds of creators, macro, micro. So, well, like I said, following count is important, but the most important is the engagement rate to your following count. So, does your engagement actually match your followers? So, if you have 500,000 followers, that's fantastic. But if your engagement rate doesn't match that, something's kind of flagging off there.
So what
So
do you
we,
mean by, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
yeah,
there, but
you're
like,
good.
because something I've noticed is that some people will share like, oh, they have like 1.2 million followers, but then their post is actually only seen by like 100,000 people. Like, what have
Right.
you guys learned about that kind of disconnect?
Yeah, so I mean, brands are looking for a really good engagement ratio. So every percentage is different. Every
Hmm.
brand wants a different percentage and things like that. So we don't necessarily stick to a certain percentage. However, for that example, you just gave 1.2 million followers to only getting 100K views. Something should be off there to me. If I
Hmm.
was looking at a million plus follower account, I want to see at least 500 to 700K views
Hmm.
averaging upon posts. Obviously some posts are going to do better than others, but that's kind of the average that I would be looking for. So just making sure that your engagement is at least kind of half of what your following is, depending on how big you are too. There's kind of a
Interesting.
lot that
Yeah.
goes into it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see people with like 48 million followers, and obviously there's going to be a lot of variation there. Yeah, I've always kind of wondered, even just for myself, seeing like how things perform so differently. And obviously, some
Yeah.
things are just going to click and they kind of just go off. But um, so yeah, so a lot of licensing, a lot of business, a lot of kind of pre-scouting. And
Yes.
I guess the first thing is like, what kind of gives you guys the creator ick when
The
kind of
creator
looking
egg. I
at
love that.
the, like, I know I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder what would be the thing that would say, you know what, this person kind of could be someone of potential that we could work with, but this kind of turned us off.
Yes, I have two big answers to the question.
Okay, yeah, lay it on me.
One, I mean, let's be real, like influencer marketing pre-COVID was very different to what it is now.
Hmm.
And back then, it was like, if they're promoting a product, they're just taking a selfie and, hey, here's the product, you guys should buy
Yeah.
it type of thing. But now it's shifted very much into brands want to tap into your organic content and just throw their products in there. So it's more authentic and more of like a commercially style type of video instead of like just throwing it in your face so abruptly like that. So
Hmm.
that's my first big ick is if you're doing a lot of partnerships where you're just kind of doing that, here's the product, take this, use this,
Right.
whereas in the difference being, here's my day in my life and I use this shampoo and conditioner and that's just thrown into the day of the life, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Those two
Yeah,
differences.
absolutely. Yeah.
And then the second one is obviously, selfies, mirror selfies, those things are still super big right now, but it's kind of how you're approaching that content. Using like the OG Snapchat filters or like things like that don't really scream aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And that was very, again, pre-COVID, that was kind of a more of a thing, but it's definitely not what brands are looking for at this point. So I would say those two are my biggest things for sure.
Interesting. So I'm even thinking back to like when I was a bit younger and like you'd see the picture, like the joke was always, oh, you're gonna sell tea on social media. Like it was always like some sort of David's tea thing, and that was kind of the running joke of like it was probably mostly, I guess, like girls at that time that were kind of doing that. So that's interesting. So what have been kind of some of the different trends that you've seen of like what is a more popular way of influencing, for example, like the videos with the different things and starting with the tea, like what have been some of those that you've
Definitely.
noticed?
I would say like the biggest trends right now is people that are watching your content just want to feel like they can connect to you in some sort of way. They want to feel like they're best friends with you, they know you, they have a connection with you. So bringing out the most authentic and organic self within your content is just so incredibly important. Showing that raw, vulnerable side. Whereas again, pre-COVID, being vulnerable wasn't as much of a thing. It definitely was a thing for some people, but not as much as it is now. And people are
Mhm.
coming out more vulnerable to say, the hardships that they're going through and things like that. Really, like I said, ultimately, your audience just wants to feel like you're a real person, like they can connect with
Mhm.
you on a deeper level than just like, here's my glamorous lifestyle and here's the beautiful
Yeah.
car that I drive, the house I live in. Like, I mean, how many people's houses are perfectly clean on a day-to-day basis? I know mine isn't for sure. So,
I know. Even if you
um,
tilt my camera back a bit, you see like books on the floor. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
exactly. Yeah.
Like,
But people they rather see that. Like, they
yeah.
know nobody's life is perfect. Obviously, some may be more fortunate than others, but your life is still not perfect, and showing that authenticity and that vulnerableness and showing that. So that's where like those day in the lives, the get ready with me's, the really talking style videos to the camera does super
Mhm.
well because again, your audience just wants to feel that connection.
Well, yeah, because I've even noticed, obviously, I'm kind of more in the education realm specifically, but I'll see these ones where it's like, come to school with me in the morning, and they're just like grabbing coffee and
Exactly.
then like walking in the front door, and it's like, oh, this got 9 million views. I'm like, that's so crazy, like how that
Yeah.
can be. But I guess you are seeing more of a personal element where you're actually kind of with them in their day, not in how they're creating their content. So I can kind of see
Exactly.
that. And so you did kind of touch on it there, but do you have any other, I guess, ideas for, I guess, where do creators usually miss the mark of establishing connection with their audience?
It's different for everybody, but I would say the biggest thing is any creator wanting to get into this space or is already in it, you have to do it because you love it, because you love
Mhm.
creating the content that you're creating. You want to create that community. I mean, being an influencer, you're working by yourself all day. It's a very
Mhm.
quote unquote lonely job to have. So having that online community is super important. So if you're in it to, I want to get brand deals, I want to monetize, I want to make money from it, that's when you're probably not going to be successful because you're too focused on the monetization aspect.
Mhm.
Whereas you should be focused on, I just love what I do and I want to share that with the world and I want to connect with others. That should be the goal. And if that's the goal, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be way more successful than on the opposite side.
Mhm. Love that. And so, what are some of the things that you see as, like, I guess, kind of already having an established audience, but how would you go about advising people to create a better connection or finding their audience? Like, how do you encourage or guide people to finding their target audience?
Definitely. I mean, luckily for us, there's so many ways to be able to do that now. We have so many different platforms that you can use. So my big advice would be to be on at least two platforms where you're established. A lot of people, their go-tos are Instagram and TikTok, but YouTube is also a great way to do that. Um, and then the opposite side, as far as exactly the content goes, going live on those platforms is a really great, like, real way to connect because they just feel like you're FaceTiming with them. And then again, back to what I was saying about what kind of content you want to create, as long as you stay true to you and your specific content niche, that community is honestly just going to come along with it and you're going to find your people. For example, we have a lot of moms who are in the infertility space on our roster. So they have really found a strong community tapping into that specific niche, but it just kind of came along with it because they express their vulnerability with it and they're very organic and just honest with their audience about what they were going through. And you can do that with any niche, from like home decor to we have a lot of teachers that do it,
Mhm.
really anything. But as long as you love what you're doing, somebody else will love it too. That doesn't mean everybody will love it, but
Mhm.
you're going to find that strong community that will.
Well, and I think that's arguably one of the more underrated parts of creating content in general is that not everyone is supposed to love it.
Right.
Like, you're not making it's like, I always hear about movies that are in the theater where I'm like, "Oh, that's stupid. I don't wanna see that movie." And it's like, "Well, that movie's not made for you." I guess it's made for other people who are going to enjoy that space
Exactly.
a bit more. Um, yeah, I love that. It's honestly such valuable information. And so another kind of quote that I've come across in a few podcasts that I've listened to is, does it grow corn? Like what, like, does it actually, does what you're doing actually create a positive, tangible thing that someone can take away from it? Like, does it do the, so what I'm looking for, like the least valuable thing for someone to take away? So, in your process of kind of going throughout this, what are some of the most underrated things that a content creator can do to create an engaged, established audience?
Um, I would say the first thing, going live. I think a lot of creatives just kind of look over that because they're so used to just, creating their content on a daily basis, editing it, posting it. But going live is huge. I mean, that's a like in-person way to really connect with everybody because it's live. It's not curated, it's not
Mhm.
edited, it's all in the moment. So going live is definitely a huge thing. And really at the end of the day, like my biggest thing is just showing your face, actually talking to the camera. That's why Get Ready With Me's do so well because you're just sitting there like doing your makeup or doing your skincare routine or whatever it is that you're doing, but you're talking to the camera. So it's very like quote unquote in real time. You're just kind of going on a tangent, talking about whatever you're talking about. So that kind of content I would say does really well. And then a lot of creators are very successful with on their Instagram stories specifically, just like say they're in, say they're waiting to pick their kids up from school and they're in the parking lot line, right? Picking them up,
Mhm.
getting on their story and just like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. Like 2 frame story, super quick, but just like a pop in to say, hey, I'm still here. And like, this is real time because it's happening right now
Mhm.
versus like, all the posts that obviously, of course, are not happening in that moment. Right. So doing
Yeah.
things like that.
Love that. And so, like, I'm interested in your, like, you went from horse riding to sales. Like, it's such a crazy jump, but I guess,
Yeah.
did it feel weird for you kind of going into sales at first? Like, you're always kind of competing, so I guess you kind of have that background, but like, what did you learn about the process of actually making a sale and getting someone to buy in with your experience there?
Definitely. So in high school, I actually worked for a saddle read. It wasn't like commission based or anything like that, but of course it was retail. So I was on the floor, learning about the products, selling products. So I had a little bit of background from that. But this kind of selling was definitely a lot different. It was commission based and, however much you sell is however much you're going to make.
Mhm.
And for me, I honestly picked up on it right away and loved it right away for that aspect. I felt like a very much adrenaline rush just by like
Mhm.
getting the sale, connecting with the person, giving them what they needed, what they'd been looking for. And then obviously seeing that return in my pocket was a super
Mhm.
big plus too.
Mhm.
But I would say, yeah, I really just found, like I said, an adrenaline rush with the sales aspect. And I found that I was also able to connect with a lot of different people doing that too, that I probably would have never have connected with if I wasn't doing that job. So yeah, definitely different, a lot different than what I was used to. But I
Mhm.
think that's why I kind of love doing what we do here at Jexy because while we're managing our creators, we are doing a lot of negotiating aspects with the brands and securing those deals and everything like that. So that brings into a lot of the sales aspects on that sense as well. And that's just like, I mean, obviously you make your creators happy, they're thriving, they're doing great. Then in turn, the agency is, and then you're making these connections with these brands. But it's also like that rush that, oh my God, this is like, I gotta, negotiate this deal to a certain price. And then when you do, you're on like this such high, and then you just want to keep
Mhm.
going and doing more. So I don't know if that
Absolutely.
answers the question.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm even wondering too, I guess, obviously, even being a content creator, there's a certain kind of perception that's going to be developed of you by the people that you're engaging with. And obviously, you're trying to be authentic as much as you can. Has there ever been a case where you've had, and like, obviously, you don't have to name names, but where a content creator has kind of actually been very different in kind of your interactions with them versus kind of what you saw from them online?
Yes. Yes. Um, yes. So we have definitely, there's definitely been creators that I've come into interactions with where You see them online. They're this super bubbly, seem what extroverted type of person. And then you get to an event and you're with them and they like don't talk and they're super shy and they're just very like, they're still super, I've never like encountered one that was like rude or anything like that,
Yeah.
but they're super shy, very more on the introverted side, and kind of needed like a helping hand to kind of talk to other people. And then once
Mhm.
they did, they would get in their groove. But it is interesting to see that because we're so used to seeing these bubbly people that are ready to talk, ready to
Mhm.
go. But then when you think about the other side, in the sense that they are at home doing this by themselves, they're not like at a 9 to 5 corporate office, like working with other people,
Yeah.
interacting physically with all those other people. So it does kind of make sense that there would be certain people like that because all they have to do is put their camera up and talk to the camera and get used to that.
Yeah.
They don't actually physically have to interact with anybody. So
Mm.
it does make sense, but it is always like a surprise because you're like, okay, wait, I'm used to this person, but now I'm getting this person.
Yeah. Well, it's also like it's been weird for me too because like I at first this podcast pretty much entirely started just the teachers that I worked with at my
Right.
school, and we kind of just go shoot the shit. We have conversations about like stories that have happened to us, things that we've done. And now over the past, I guess like 6 to 8 months, it's been primarily online. And I
Mm-hmm.
always joke with people, and I also just moved across the country. I live in Canada.
Okay.
I
Nice.
just moved across the country recently, and I'm like, oh, I just have online friends now that I talk to like every now and then. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's very weird that like if you other like teacher podcasters and I are going to start something here in the new year, but
Love
it's like
that.
we all live in different provinces, and I'm like, this is very weird that we're just like have a WhatsApp chat now, and I've never actually met any of you in
Never
real life.
actually met them. Yeah, I know. That's what's so crazy about social media. And like one of the biggest blessings about it is
Yeah,
that you find all these people that, like, again, you never would have connected with in the quote unquote real world because obviously they live in a completely different state. You're not going to meet
yeah,
them like at a coffee shop down the street or
yeah,
something, right?
yeah.
So like being able to connect with them in that sense, but like saying that you've never met them is like the craziest thing to think about. But
It's like
for
we're
us, it's
actually
so
really
like
good friends,
normalized.
but I've never seen you in my life. Like,
Exactly. But then it is really cool when you do go to events, or like a lot of our influencers are really lucky to go on brand trips with these other influencers and actually
mhm,
physically meet each other for the first
yeah,
time. And it's like you see that connection with them and you never would have thought that they were only talking like over the phone. Like you would have thought that they were
yeah.
best friends for like 15 years, went on family vacations, like did all the things. So like it's cool to see them all come together like in person too.
Yeah, and it's honestly primarily instant messaging and just like replying to stories,
Right.
which is honestly, I mean, really a lot of my friends now is just sharing weird memes on Instagram to
Yeah.
them throughout the day. That's kind of just the bulk of my social media use. Arguably, I use it too much, but
Mhm.
something else that I've come across, like looking through like your profile and kind of seeing things that you've been doing, is that recently you've been doing a lot more kind of public speaking
Mhm.
and conferences. So I guess now you went from sales, I mean,
And
competing in horse riding, and but now you're like one of the top leaders of a very successful agency. I guess how have you kind of psychologically managed that transition to kind of being the person with the voice of the room, and like how do you prepare for these kind of events?
that is a fantastic question. And honestly, I don't really have too much of a concrete answer. It really just kind of happened, which I know
Okay.
is like so bland to say, but
Yeah.
it's true. The more we started growing our roster, growing our team, and I had to, what, even just on a regular Zoom call, had to speak in front of more people, I
Mm,
just kind of started getting this feeling like, okay, I feel like there's something calling to me that's bigger than what's happening right now. Like, obviously, we have this huge vision for the agency and growth for it and all of that. But for me personally, I feel like there's always a way that I want to reach more people outside of just our agency. And I feel like now, the more that I do like the public speaking or the Instagram lives and things like that, I feel like I have this like something in me that I can't really explain, that I really want to go and do those talks and connect with more people and just help change lives at the end of the day. Like help bring these influencers from their corporate jobs to be able to quit that and stay at home with their families and do this full time. And that's the ultimate goal. And I feel like just the more that I've been doing it, the more I connect with influencers in person to at events, at social situations, the more I have that feeling that, okay, I feel like there's something bigger here that I need
Hmm.
to be reaching for and going for. And I've just always been like, I'm a very extroverted person. Like, I'll go
Hmm.
up to anybody at, even if I'm just like at a bar or something. I have no problem starting a conversation with somebody. Like, I'm just very, I guess, an easygoing, outgoing person in that sense.
Hmm.
So that's never really been an issue for me. And then, my dad, on the other hand, too, he had a very big role in his corporate life. So I think I saw him doing a lot of that. So in some way, it was kind of always instilled in me. He
Hmm.
never told me, like, you have to do that or follow my footsteps or anything like that. But I think I get that personality trait from him. And it just
Yeah.
kind of, like I said, the bigger we grow, the more I do it, the more I'm like having this itch for it, essentially.
Cool. No, I like that. It's like a positive kind of feedback loop, kind of keeping you moving, which that's sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now that you're like, I would say the first 3 years, if and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you're kind of still probably feel like you're building, like you're not actually
Definitely.
done, like kind of what you're saying. So
100%.
what do you kind of see as like you started with the selfies with the teas and you had like the live events and like where do you see this going? Like content creation in general, because it seems like anyone now can almost over the course of a couple of years like build an online platform and start to like get into some digital things. And even myself, I've been fortunate enough recently to like have a few sponsors that have helped me kind of support the show. And I'm like, oh, like anyone can kind of start this process. But like, where do you kind of see the change in the mediums, if anything, for content creation kind of moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I only see it getting bigger and better. I mean, I've been even seeing there's more and more influencers being featured on like TV commercials for the very
Hmm.
few that still are TV
Yeah.
watching TV. They're
Yeah.
using influencers for those commercials.
Hmm.
And they're actually using a lot of influencers and content creators for like acting roles in movies and TV shows and things like that. So I think influencers being in this space, it really opens up their opportunities for the acting industry, commercial work. I know a lot of influencers in specific cities are very big into modeling. So, like, even that side of things. So, I think this industry alone will help influencers kind of you know, create bigger paths into other industries and tap into that. And as far as social media itself goes, I mean, I'm sure we're going to run into more platforms that come up.
Hmm.
Obviously, Instagram and excuse me, just Meta itself is the biggest platform right now. So I see them constantly, improving those platforms and offering new ways to improve there. But I think brands are really starting to take a wind of the importance of influencer marketing too.
Hmm.
So I think within the next couple of years, it's going to be one of those things where, as a brand or a company, you really have to start allocating big budgets to spend on influencer marketing for your marketing, because that's how people are buying a lot of their products now. You think of Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up, which is so crazy to say that that's happening already. But you
Yeah.
think about that coming up, and like all these brands that are really just using influencers to push their products with their discounted deals and everything like that. Because, I mean, think about how many billions of people are on the online space. Everybody's going to buy from their favorite influencer the same way when a celebrity comes out with a cosmetic line or a hairline or whatever it may be. People buy it solely because it has that person's name on it. So I think that's going to be another path too. A lot of influencers are going to, and it's already started to happen a little bit, but I think even
Hmm.
more so going to start creating their own lines and selling their own brands and their own products and being able to expand their own personal business in so many different aspects.
Absolutely. And I can't believe I didn't even think about asking you this initially, but how much attention are you paying to like this movement in AI for actually being able to create content? Like it can be a
Yes.
very easy workaround. Like even for myself with Riverside, this platform, you can potentially they can write AI newsletters for you. And I'm
Hmm.
like, but that to me, again, immediately strikes that you're not providing anything authentic. You're just having this thing pump something out for you. So how much are you weighing that at all into your kind of business strategy?
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of different mixed feelings going around about AI from
Hmm.
everybody, but
Education as
um,
well. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But at the end of the day, AI, it's still technology. It's a robot, so to speak. You
Hmm.
can't replace people. And I mean, at least in my personal viewpoints, I can't imagine somebody wanting to follow like essentially a robot on Instagram or on TikTok or what have you, because that's not, you're not getting, like you said, that personal connection. So I can't really foresee it replacing these influencers or just people in general. However, I do see it as a benefit to help you, like influencers that are super big. It is a great tool to use it in your DMs to set up like
Hmm.
automatic responses so that you can get to more people. Whereas, they're getting so many DMs a day, they just physically cannot respond to everybody. So at
Hmm.
least they can respond with that AI message that they set up in their own backend to say whatever they want. And they can say, this is my AI messenger responding for you. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can, or however they want to word it. But stuff like that to kind of help automate their business a little bit better. Because
Hmm.
obviously, running your own business as one singular person, so doing all the content, the editing, the message responses, the comment replies, the brand partnerships, the subscriptions, all these things that all these people are doing, it's a lot to do as one person. So I think if anything, it does help automate and make their lives a little bit easier, with them still making that boundary of, okay, I'm going to help with maybe the auto message replies or even the newsletters, but I'm going to make sure it still sounds like me, and my following does know that I'm not going anywhere. Like, this is just a tool to help me. And they can,
Hmm.
I would suggest them saying that too. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen my AI response tool. This is to help me get to more of you. It is not replacing me. Like, really, like, be honest that they're using it, and then I think that that'll kind of help bridge the gap a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's something that I just maybe just purposely block out of my mind. So I'm like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know how to use it properly.
Yeah,
And so just like a couple more questions to kind of finish us off here. So
sure.
a few quotes I've kind of put in. It's like obsession kind of creates originality. We touched on that one. Does it grow corn? Um, but one of my favorites is do not let school get in the way of your education. And I think like we touched on it a bit here where you talked about kind of the traits that you had from your dad and like the confidence in public speaking and the relationship and the connection. But like what are some of the things that you've learned that you think have helped make you successful that you wouldn't have learned necessarily in a classroom, even for marketing or for business, or that you've actually kind of learned by doing?
Definitely. Honestly, I think the biggest thing is learning how to deal with people. I mean, as far as I know, I don't
Cheers.
think there is. Yeah. There's not a class that says, here's how to deal with this type of person, here's how to deal with this
Yeah.
problem, like,
So what are the
here's your
different types of
blueprint.
people?
So I mean, there's going to be those people that just make you do the runaround in
Mhm.
every single which way possible. That kind of just make everything, I don't want to say difficult, but make it a little bit
It's a
harder
little
to get to the
unnecessary.
end point. Yes. um, and then there's just those some people that also don't understand that boundary of business and personal. So, like, separating those two, and like, if they're blowing your phone up at a certain time of night where it's like way, way after hours, kind of, dealing with that respect of, handling that sort of situation, I
Hmm.
think is another one. And then I think just, at the end of the day, in every business and every industry, there are people that just come across a certain way that you just need to learn how to navigate. You need to learn how
Yeah.
to deal with it, stay professional on your standpoint, remain respectful always. But again, you don't learn that until you're really dealing with it. So,
It's like you can always just talk shit about them later. Okay, it's fine. No, I'm just kidding. You always have your friends where you can be like, man, you're not gonna leave this happen to me today, but you can always kind of get yourself through that position. But I guess kind of one more question for And again, there's some research is me search here a little bit. What are some of the things where you say to, I guess, creators that are starting to find some success of how to actually invest in themselves?
Find success into how to, you cut out there for a second. Could you repeat
Oh,
that?
sorry. Yeah. So I guess
No, it's okay.
no, so creators who are kind of starting off, like, what advice would you give to people of how to properly invest in themselves to become better at this?
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I would say the very first thing, if you're first starting out and this is like very new to you, just getting a few different tools and that you can literally get off of Amazon that can help you. A tripod, obviously, is a big one. A microphone, if you're doing like certain ASMR videos or things like that.
Mhm,
A ring light is huge. One that, yes, you can like stand up into a tripod, but they sell ones now that you can just clip onto your phone, and those are really great because obviously you can't control the lighting everywhere you are.
mhm,
Um, so those things are really great starting points. As you start to grow, investing, if you're doing a lot of vlogging or longer form style videos, investing in a really good camera is going to be super important, because, obviously the iPhones are super up to date now and the cameras are amazing, but there's nothing like a good camera quality. So
mhm,
investing in that, and then making sure that your editing tools are like super, super up to par. There's so many different editing tools now. I know a lot of creators use CapCut. That's probably the biggest one.
mhm,
Lightroom, Adobe is also another really good one. But just investing in the right editing tools are going to be super, super helpful. And then, of course, your time. Like your time is your biggest
mhm,
investment. If you really want to put out quality content, you have to take the time to edit your videos properly, and you have to be patient with yourself. As artists, as creators, we are harder on ourselves than anybody else will ever be. So I understand from that personal aspect that nothing is going to be ever 1,000% perfection when I put it out there online,
mhm,
but nobody else sees the little things that you're going to see. So just making sure that you're spending your time on certain pieces of content that really, really need it versus like a quick little video that you don't need to spend 3 hours editing, that you just need to post on TikTok to just help pump your content out. Spend that time on that. And then your brand partnerships. Really making sure that, as large as this industry is, it's also very small, and brands talk, other influencers talk. So if you do not get your drafts in on time, if the quality of content does not relate to what you're actually putting out there every day, if you're not posting on time, that's going to inhibit that relationship to obviously one, not be long term with that one brand, but it could also, other brands could also see that as well. And that could inhibit other partnerships that you get. So those would be the top things that I would say.
absolutely. No, those are all a lot of nuggets of wisdom there coming out. And so the last one is, anyone who's listening to this podcast knows that I love to kind of discuss imposter syndrome. So I won't go too much into it here, as I'm sure you're aware. I guess you kind of have some of those characteristics of kind of being more extroverted, kind of enjoying that. But if you're kind of that kind of more quiet introvert and you're kind of working your classic 9 to 5 gig, you're kind of a little scared but you really want to do it, so I guess what would you say to that person to just get the ball rolling so they can actually make that start?
Just do it. Honestly, just start doing
No
it. The
affiliation with Nike here, but I like
Yes.
it.
Whoops. Honestly, though, you really just have to start getting going with it. And you have to not care what anybody else thinks. And I know that is obviously way easier said than done,
Mhm,
but you're never going to be successful if every single time you post, oh my gosh, what is this person going to think? Or, oh my gosh, what are my family and friends going to think with me starting this? Because I know that's a big one with people really starting off, is obviously all their family and friends already follow them. So what are
mhm,
they going to think about me posting these particular videos that look like I'm trying to be an influencer, but I just love doing this and I want to start sharing my life.
yeah,
But through that, you'll really find out who your true friends are as well and who want that success for you. But like I said, at the end of the day, you just have to not care what anybody thinks, and you have to block everything else out. Again, easier said than done, but you really have to. The bigger you are, the more susceptible to hate you're going to get. again, thank them for the engagement, move on, and keep going about your day. But 9 times out of 10, they got something else bigger going on with them that actually has anything to do with you. So those are the things that I would say. I would just say, if you want to do it, make it happen. You are the only thing stopping yourself from making it happen if you don't do it. So
Beautiful. All right. Well, Isabella Schmidt, thank you so much for coming on today. I guess
thank you.
where can people follow you and where can they find your work?
Yes, so my personal Instagram is Bella S Rose 4, and then Jexy is Jexy Agency. You can also find our website, jexyagency.com. Connect with us, DM us, inquire on our website. We would love to connect with anybody.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.